I see everybody, but just for transparency for the folks at home, I'm just gonna do a quick roll call of who we've got on the line. Sean Askham, good morning.
Morning.
Wendy Max Studis, hi.
Morning. Hi.
Personnel Subcommittee, Town Manager Maria Capriola.
Good morning.
Good morning. Chief Nick Bolter, good morning.
Good morning.
And Mike Long, good morning, Mike. From the Police Commission, and Tom Fitzgerald, good morning. I'm not missing anyone, am I?
And Eric Gomes is on the line as well.
Oh, and you know what's funny? I thought that was me. Hi, Eric. Good morning.
Hi, Eric. Good morning.
I didn't recognize the emoji. All right. Approval of minutes from May 20th. Is there any feedback on the minutes from our last meeting? Nope. Okay, then they'll stand as presented. Okay, item 2 is the deputy chief classification. So the budget for our upcoming fiscal year includes a new deputy chief position, and it also calls for the upgrade of a sergeant position to a lieutenant. And it's a command structure that was supported by our police commission, and in our packets is a job description and a proposed salary range. So I just wanted to open it up either to Maria or the chief for a little context.
Sure. Chief, do you want to just provide an overview in terms of some of the key functions that you would like this person to do?
Yeah, certainly. So good morning, everyone. So this is an executive position. It would be a second in command position, looking for a part of a successor plan as well. Responsible for administrative supervisory duties at managerial rank in the organization. A lot of planning and developing and some procedures and policies. It's a position that I think that would extremely benefit the whole purpose and function of the police department. I went through and took a look at numerous other job descriptions of similar positions from throughout the region, and that's how we came to what we have before us for job description. Obviously, as well as what we felt the need was here in the discussions with the police commission, with the town manager, and the board of selectmen.
Okay, thank you. Wendy or Sean, did you have any specific questions on the job description? Wendy, you're on mute. Hey, Wendy, you're on mute.
Yeah, I knew. I couldn't find my unmute button. So I'm just going through it. And I'm just wondering if there's any wording we might want to add in light of what's happening, or and to call out specifically, and I know we're working on the reviewing of the policies and things like that. So they would be in the policy, and it would say following the guidance of the police commission. But is there anything we want to call out specifically, to adhere to, I don't know, fairness? I like I said, it's going to be in the policy, but I'm just trying. I don't have wording right now to just call out, like, I can't even come up with the wording, but appreciation of full diversity, consideration, no physical, some of the 8 things that are there, to call any of that out specifically in the job.
Was that a consideration in drawing up this job description?
So I think, if you don't mind, I'll answer that. I think that that certainly relates to our policies, our procedure, our philosophy, as opposed to any particular job description. Every employee of the police department is held to those standards of the policies, and to our procedures and to our accreditation standards. So I don't really see where calling that out specifically for a particular job description is something that we're looking for. I think that's a requirement, a need for all of our employees.
Right.
But certainly within this job description is the oversight, the managerial responsibility, the supervisory responsibility, the administrative responsibility to ensure that we are doing what we say we're doing, and looking at how we can always improve and reflecting on things and analyzing things. So I think that's built within that job description there.
Right. Yeah, I just was just thinking, is it something we want to call out specifically, even in this and going forward in job descriptions for our police department?
So I think the chief is right in that, Wendy, we have policies and procedures that govern all employees. And if you start micromanaging job descriptions with our whim at the time, you've got inconsistent.
Not a whim. Yeah.
It's your perspective.
Okay.
So you start creating a tangled web of disjointed job descriptions, whereas one policy can be updated to reflect current times or current appropriateness or the way the town envisions us behaving. There are also HR ties to this, legal ties, et cetera. And if you start putting them in job descriptions, you're going to start holding people to different standards and different accountabilities, and that creates a whole nother mess.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with what you're saying, but we need to look at our overall harassment, discrimination, use of force, other policies that govern all employees versus only updating one job description and then no one else in the department is subject to it. And that's not how we should be running an organization.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I'm comfortable with the job description as it is. I mean, as I understand, a job description lays out the specifics of this particular role, whereas every role, I think everyone who works for our town needs to abide by the policies that we have in our town around non-discrimination and treating people equitably, et cetera. So I agree. I think we can tackle those issues on the policy front rather than in job description.
And just a further point, if we miss something here and it's inconsistent with our policies and procedures, then we've got a whole enforcement procedural mess with what level are we holding this individual accountable for versus the rest of the staff. Think about grievances and everything else and punishment. If we start putting it in the job description, Maria and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've created an additional layer of administration and check and balance and then maintenance. And if we, heaven forbid, miss one of those, we've got a challenge on our hands, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Sean or Wendy, did you have any other feedback or questions on the job description? No. Okay. On the subject of the salary range, I saw the benchmarking that was performed. Did you just give a little bit of context how you landed on this range? Although it looked like we are in the middle of the benchmark towns.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we did. Is we took a look at the 12 benchmark towns, and not everybody has the same exact structure, but sort of equivalent positions. And that's exactly where it landed, right around that average, right around that median, right in that range. Also took a look at those towns that aren't in that 12 and comparable, just to see sort of a general range, and it fit right about in there as well.
Okay. Were there, Wendy, Sean, questions on the salary range?
No, I don't have any.
I mean, I presume it's consistent when you add bennies to it to the approved budgetary number, right? Within that range.
Yeah, Sean, that's correct. So going into budget, we had done some benchmarking because we wanted to have a pretty good number to work with for budgeting purposes. And we budgeted about 128 for the salary. Again, just to make sure that we had enough in there. So I think we're in good shape. Oh, and we also budgeted benefits as well. So yeah, we should be in good shape.
I know there was also some conversation at the police commission meeting on Monday night, and that's why Mike is here. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Eric. Yeah, I guess the questions arose because I'm not fully understanding what is meant by salary range. Typically, we have found over the years that salary ranges for positions in private industry typically run from 30 to 40% from low to high. And there's plenty of room to maneuver within those ranges. Typically, you hire someone who's brand new in a position at the low end of the range, and they can progress through the range over time as their performance warrants. This range had a $6,000 spread, 2% to 3% of the entire range. And we didn't understand where that came from or why that's the range. Why isn't the range, for instance, if 122 to 128, excuse me, seems to be the area which most comparable positions in other towns are in. What is the low and what is the high in those towns? So maybe the range would be 115,000 to 140,000. And so then we can fit, our position into our own structure with the comparable ranges for, lieutenants and the captains if there are a chief, et cetera. And we just didn't understand what's the salary range. Is that what it's limited to? Because, it's going to be, at least in our opinion, it would be very difficult to hire somebody into a range where they only have a possibility of progressing another 3% over a whole career, or whatever the market takes that range to, which is going to be low. And so that's what we didn't understand. What does salary range mean? Is that the limit? And if so, it just doesn't seem realistic to be able to hire someone into a position where they can have growth, progression, raises over time if they deserve it. And so that was they asked me to try to find out what that meant. So
okay. Mike, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Are you speaking, here tonight on behalf of the police commission, or yourself as a member of the police commission?
No, on behalf of the police commission.
Okay. So the concern is the relatively narrow band of the range not leading to opportunities to provide raises or advancement over time. Am I captured?
Yes. Okay. I see, but that's a lack of knowledge on our part of what are other ranges within the town structure of salary administration. But
Yeah, Mike.
Sure.
I think you bring up a fair question, but I think we've got a good explanation for you, right, Maria, in terms of how this is executed.
Yeah, absolutely. So our small number of non-union positions don't operate on the step and grade system like our union positions do. So there is just a range. What we've been doing, at least since I've been here, on an annual basis, looking at that non-union group, and typically we'll bring something back to the personnel subcommittee to look at a potential general wage increase for that group. And typically at that time, they look at the ranges, and if we're going to grant any sort of general wage increase, to make sure that the ranges remain competitive in the market, adjusting the ranges upwards as appropriate. So that's, again, something that's typically done for the non-union group as a whole on an annual basis, that review. And then for the non-union folks, they're eligible for that general wage increase if they receive a satisfactory performance review. So that's sort of the framework that we have for our non-union positions, and this would be consistent with that.
Okay. It just seems difficult. It's 5% is the total room within that range. And if you adjust the range to market on an annual basis or biannual or whatever it is, you're still going to be stuck with that 5%. And that was the only question that a couple of the commissioners raised. How can you give someone a merit-based range that might, or raise that might call for more than 5%. You can't, within, if that's the range. You can only move it as far as the range itself can move all the time.
Yeah, fair point, Mike. But remember, we control the range. So as we did a couple of years ago, when you made a really thoughtful argument to us, we adjusted the range because it was out of touch, right? So it's in that, a couple of years ago, I remember the former chief's range was too low, right? As was the captain's, and we went and made some appropriate adjustments to address just that. So I think the challenge is those kind of go in concert with each other. We need to make sure that those ranges are market appropriate. But also, we're not going to put $200,000 in there because we don't want to lead somebody to believe that, there's unlimited upside here, because this is obviously, as you know, not corporate America. And,
Sure.
The compensation structure is a bit different on an annual basis, especially given bargaining arrangements and everything. We need as best we can to line everything up. So your point is fair, and that we don't want a candidate to think that this is the max it's ever going to be. And I don't believe that's the intent of anybody on this call, right? But at the time, this is what the market tells us it is. I mean, I'm comfortable adjusting the range, but again, we need the number to be what we budgeted, right? So,
Isn't this? Can I ask? Isn't this just the hiring range?
If they're going to hire somebody in, no, this is the salary range. If it's just the hiring rate at which you're willing to pay, that's one thing. But the range,
yeah, that's
something else. And it's okay if it overlaps between, maybe the low end is below the high end of the next lower range, or maybe the high end is higher than the low end of the next higher range. In other words, there can be overlap between different ranges and different positions. It was just, I understand what you're saying, and it's just different terminology, that's all. And that's fine.
And I think if it's okay if I'm sorry.
No, I just want to, the way I read it, I just know what the salary range to hire the deputy chief of police is 122 to 128.3. That doesn't mean that, or does it, that as he or she stays on, they're eligible for other increases outside of the 128. Like, is it just the hiring range?
Well, yes and no. So again, they're eligible. That's right. They could be hired within that range. And then again, when we bring that annual review to you, that's the opportunity to adjust the range and bump it out if we need to, which is generally, again, what we've been doing the last few years is when we bring the general wage increase, we have that spreadsheet analysis, we take a look at all the positions, and then we adjust the minimum and maximum range as needed to make sure that the range is staying competitive. So you're right that with general wage increase awards, that high end of the range could over time continue to be pushed out.
Okay. Is the high end of the range the 128,300 when you add benefits to that? Where does that fall in comparison to what we budgeted for the position?
Yeah, we're right on, which is great. So we budgeted for a salary of 128. And then with benefits, it was a little over, I believe, 180 or maybe a little under 190. So we're definitely right on target. We also budgeted for a full year. But by the time we post the position, conduct the recruitment, it's likely that, we would hire somebody probably a few months into the fiscal year. So there's definitely enough from a budgetary perspective to support the proposed range.
I do. Can I just throw one more thing in? I'm waking up now. I've started to have enough coffee. How do we, the scale comparison chart, how do we compare when we add the benefits to those other towns? Or if you add the benefits to the other towns, are we still comparable? Are we higher than everyone?
Hard to tell, right? Because we don't necessarily know the Benny structure.
Yeah, and something that, again, I think that we've been really thoughtful about the towns that we've picked for our comparables. So a combination of looking at towns in the region, but then also looking at towns that have similar demographics to us. And then when we came up with those benchmarking towns that we've been using now for a couple of years, we were also pretty thoughtful in looking at professionally managed communities, whether it was a town manager or a town administrator. And you'll typically see I think, pretty similar benefits packages and structures offered in those communities. So while everything might not be the same, in terms of, some form of pension, some form of life insurance, those are common benefits that you would see throughout those communities. So again, I think we were pretty careful and thoughtful about the benchmark communities that we had picked.
I guess just my point though, Maria, is we don't know specifically, is Avon another 50 grand or 40 grand or 70 grand? We don't know definitively to the dollar like we do the salaries, right?
Correct. That's correct.
Right.
We don't go into that level of analysis on the
right, because we'd have to open up their contracts, we'd have to read the agreements, and it's not something we have access to necessarily.
Yeah, it would be a pretty heavy lift to get into that level of detail for the 12 communities for each position. Yeah.
Right. It's a good
And then
question, though, Wendy.
Well, the other question I have is, are these the salaries that the entry level salary for the deputy, or are these the current levels?
Sure. So typically what we'll do is we'll look at the minimum of their range and the maximum of our range. And so we'll try to look at the range as opposed to what a specific person is making.
Okay. Mike, I appreciate the Police Commission's perspective. I'm glad you could join us on this call and provide that context. Given what we budgeted for in the position, I am comfortable with moving forward with this range. I wanted to check in with Wendy and Sean on that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm good. Knowing, again, I'm trusting the fact that we've got the professional management in place. We've got the police commission, obviously the advocacy there. The chief, and this committee, there are 4 checkpoints to make sure that we're compensating not only this position, but all positions fairly. So I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Is there a motion effective June 11, 2020 to endorse the creation of the position classification of the Deputy Chief of Police and the job description as presented, and also to endorse the salary range for the Deputy Chief of Police position of $122,000 to $128,300?
Moved.
And wait 1 second. Sorry. There's something else. And to forward the Deputy Chief proposal to the full Board of Selectmen for review and consideration.
I move that too.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to your meeting this morning. I guess there's nothing further on the agenda that I could be helpful with, so I'm going to sign off in just a second. But I'd like to make a couple of comments just quickly before I go.
Yeah.
I do think there are some linguistic gymnastics with defining salary range, and that this is really the range of the actuals that's being paid in the other towns for the same position. It's not really, I don't believe, the range that's available to those officers in those other positions in the towns. But that's okay, as long as we understand that. Then that's fine. There was a question asked earlier, and I think in the job description as it now exists under essential job functions, one of the requirements is that it assures the compliance. This position would assure the compliance with laws, regulations, policies, and procedures throughout the department. So it includes all of the policies and not just singling out 1 or 2 policies. And that applies to everyone within the department, and it does with this position as well. And this is pretty all-inclusive because it even requires, there is a requirement here that the prospective employee be able to have the ability to talk and hear. About here, so it's pretty all-inclusive of the whole thing. So we are glad that we are proceeding down this road. As you know, we recommended this a year or so ago, and we're pleased with that. And I'll part with one other request, and that is that somehow you bring up on your selectmen agenda again the concept of body cameras, because we did request that 5 years ago, 4, 3, 2, and 1 year ago, and we're still requesting it. And I think it's definitely time to move forward with that somehow. You can put that into your agenda. Otherwise, thank you very much for having me aboard, and I will sign off.
Thanks, Mike. And we look forward to a continued partnership with the Police Commission as we move forward, or consider proposals on the body cameras, among other things, later this summer. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Mike, have a good day.
Okay, item 3 is the town manager's fiscal year 2021 goals. And Maria, I think you're going to share your screen here.
Yes, just one second. Okay, can you guys see it okay?
Yes.
Great. So this is my first draft, and what I did, a couple of different things. I went through the selectmen's draft goals for the current term and tried to incorporate some goals into my goals that I thought would fit nicely into that. And then I also took a look at the current goals to see, what was left that we didn't complete or necessarily get to. I know that as in the past, we've talked about that this is sort of an ambitious list of things that we aspire to accomplish within the organization. Obviously, it's not all encompassing, but it really will hit on some of either the key items to support your work or some of the key projects that have, quite a bit of organizational impact. So again, not all encompassing, but, tends to be a little ambitious in an effort to kind of give us, again, projects that we want to work on and aspire to. So I kept the categories that we've been using the last few years. And I have a human resources and labor relations category and again, I just took sort of an attempt at prioritization. We could certainly, I think in the past, it's been a conversation between us in terms of whether or not something should be high, medium, or low. But under HR and labor relations, completing negotiations for our successor collective bargaining agreements, and then implementing any changes that come from those contracts. Also conducting our what would be our 3rd annual leadership retreat, and thought that perhaps the focus this year could be on creating a diverse workforce and an inclusive workplace, that could hopefully be the focus of our retreat.
Great.
Also, in support of professional development, continuing to identify opportunities for our staff to do executive coaching, some small group work, departmental work. With the funds that we have available, we were able, I think, to make some really good strides in that this year, which was really exciting. And proceeding with some customer service training, as well as some anti-harassment training for staff that we have coming up. Let's see, also under HR, proceeding with implementation of the new vendor that we've identified for our defined contribution and deferred compensation plan. So this is the record keeping and administrative services project that we've been working on. 2 projects that we'd like to try and get to this year would be issuing an RFQ for pension counsel, as well as perhaps an RFQ for our pension and OPEB actuarial services. That particular service, I just want to say, I mean, we do receive phenomenal service from our current actuarial firm. It's just that we have not gone out to bid for that particular service in a very, very long time. I think we've currently had that firm in place since the mid-90s. And just with our purchasing policies, we've been trying to really go through with some of those very long-standing contracts and just to make sure that we really are getting the best value, and that we've been really trying to, again, since we adopted the revised purchasing policy, to start, tackling these RFQs, a few every year, to really go out into the market. And then under economic development, I think that this will be a really important focus of the EDC, but really working to support business recovery due to the pandemic in the upcoming year. So a little bit of a shift for them, and working collaboratively with the EDC, our town staff, Main Street Partnership, the Chamber, and other organizations that support the business community to help with those efforts. Once we are able to, we would like to resume with the EDC our business visitations and outreach with the business community. We had started that this calendar year. That was just an incredible effort. We got really great feedback. We had a calendar scheduled out all the way until the summer, and unfortunately we had to cancel many of our visits and trying to reschedule them, when we'll be able to start going back out and actually visiting and with people face to face and touring with them.
Just a real quick thought on that, Maria.
Yeah.
I understand now if the current priorities don't allow you to do that, but I do think that even a Zoom meeting with a major business in town just to check in would be appreciated. But again, I also understand the stress that your office is under.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, but that's a great suggestion. That's a really good suggestion, especially if we're not going to be able to really start getting out in person soon. That's a very good suggestion. Another item that the EDC has been working on with my office is updating the business incentive policy. So they were really helpful with research around that and helping us to rewrite that. And that's something that I think we're hoping to wrap up this year. And that's also part of their work plan. And then this is something that we've had on for a few years, and it's just working with our special villages on initiatives related to events, infrastructure, improvements, and economic development.
What are special villages? Not to.
Oh, sure. No, that's a great question. So that would be like Terrifil, you know, the downtown area, Weetog, so sort of those special, the special villages, and working to do projects in those neighborhoods that would, you know, get help with infrastructure, special events. So, you know, a good example I think of that was the recent grant application we submitted to CROG to do the sidewalk along the North Village. That's another village.
Okay, got it.
And then for financial management, again, you know, this is a big part of my responsibility, working with the finance director and Melissa to prepare and submit our operating and capital budgets in accordance with our charter timelines. You know, something that's been really important to us that we've been working very diligently on is continuing to quantify what our baseline and routine capital needs are. So continuing those efforts. And then we also anticipate finalizing both the parks and open space master plan, as well as the facilities master plan in the coming year. So what's going to be terrific is we can then take that additional data, which again will help us, you know, getting at those baseline needs. We can incorporate that into our capital budgeting. So that's definitely a priority for us this year. We've been working on implementation of our new financial management and HR software system. We're still really excited about this project. It's a very heavy lift. It's something that's going to take, you know, a period of a couple of years to fully have everything up and going. But we are in that process, and we'll be working on that throughout the year. And this effort unfortunately got stalled due to the pandemic, but we do have our special revenue fund analysis of the Park and Rec Fund that was completed with some recommendations. We did establish the work group, and then unfortunately the meetings that we had scheduled needed to be canceled. So this is something that, again, when we're able to really start digging into this issue again, would like to support the work of that work group and then implement the recommendations as feasible. And then this item is something that we had started doing, I believe, 2 budget years ago now. But I think it also complements one of your goals nicely, is that we'll continue to update our financial benchmarking data annually and get that distributed to you all. Oops, sorry. Okay, and then under special projects, this is something I think that, again, I anticipate at least for the remainder of the calendar year being a pretty high priority for the work of my office in particular, but continuing to coordinate our response efforts related to the pandemic and really focusing on the health and safety and recovery of not only our community, but our organization as well. So we have that, you know, that responsibility of the external focus as well as the internal focus of our organization. And the other piece to recovery, I think that's really important, is supporting our residents who have unmet needs during this very, very difficult time. And I think our social services department is doing a lot of great work around that. And that's something, you know, that Kristen and I have been coordinating. A couple of other special projects that are public safety related is completing our public safety radio system upgrade. That's a very important endeavor. And then as the chief and I had mentioned this past week, we are very interested in proceeding with implementing the body camera project for the police department and expediting that. So we will be bringing you a proposal at either your June 22nd or July 13th meeting with a funding source for that. So we could potentially do that project this year as opposed to next year. I've also made a note here of supporting the board's vision for a diverse and inclusive community through special projects, initiatives, and policies that you may want us to work on. I know we've got a couple currently already underway and look forward to supporting that work. And then continuing our work around evaluating opportunities for shared services, in particular, looking at our financial management services and could we do that on a more permanent basis? So far, so good. Things have worked out really well with Amy supporting the Board of Education. And then the Technology Task Force was doing some benchmarking work for us around shared IT services. And we've started the process of formally documenting all of our shared services, but would like to sort of finalize that piece. And then we have the Meadowood open space acquisition. So our work around facilitating that potential acquisition, completing the Parks and Open Space Master Plan, also completing our town facilities master plan. And associated with that project, we want to implement a work order system that both Public Works and Parks would use. And with that would be ideally a system where it's called different things depending on the software product. You know, sometimes you'll see it's called a See-Click-Fix or Mobile 311, and then people can download an app on their phone. And you know, if they they see something like a broken swing at the playground, they can take a picture. They can send that in through the app and say, hey, I was at Rotary Park Playground and here's this broken swing. And it's fantastic. And so that's a piece to the facilities master plan. That would be a nice tie-in that we want to work on.
And then people won't have to email me anymore.
Exactly.
Okay.
I was going to say, I like that system. They bug Eric. It's perfect.
And then we did have, again, some ordinance work that was underway at the onset of the pandemic. So the proposed ordinance to prohibit the intentional feeding of wildlife, the proposed ordinance to regulate short-term rentals, as well as proposed revisions to the volunteer firefighter and ambulance personal tax abatement ordinance. So we do have some ordinance review work that we need to complete. We will be continuing to work and support the 350th anniversary committee and events. We've done quite a bit of work on what a potential senior services volunteer driving program could look like in terms of operating, how that would work, infrastructure we would need. So again, it's something that we've been working on. I think we're getting pretty close to having a proposal for you again when the pandemic hit. So just trying to get back to that. Another project that we started and still needs continued work. And again, I think this particular project will be an ongoing project over a period of years, but updating our open space stewardship policy, acquisition policies, developing land management policies and programs for our parcels, updating our ag leases. There's definitely an interest to do a ranger program. So I think there's a lot of energy here, but it's also a lot. So we do have a work group within the open space committee that's helping us work on this. So I think this will be an ongoing project over a period of years. And then we do now have a capital project established for the splash pad. I know that there was a lot of interest in the community over the past year about fundraising for this. The Rotary and some other groups seemed really interested and potentially really passionate about this issue. So if this is something that the board thinks that there's a lot of energy around, and if we do foresee fundraising efforts with that, then this is something that would probably require again some time from my office this year.
Yeah, on that item, if you asked me 6 months ago, I'd have a very different response than I do now. I think I'm fine with keeping it on there. I know it's really been my baby for the last couple of years, but I also understand the realities in which we live in, and raising money right now for something like this is probably not going to be realistic.
Yeah. So this is my first draft.
Yeah. First of all, thank you. I hesitate to even do this. I have an item that I would propose adding, but before I even venture into that territory, I wanted to get any input from others on what's here.
Again, Maria, I appreciate the thoughtfulness at which you put this together. There's a lot of themes in here that you've continued to incorporate. Obviously, diversity and inclusion is something we've been talking about for years, not just because it's currently in the news today, but it's something that it's been important to this town for a long time. So I appreciate that that's continued to be in there. And again, once again, my overall observation is this is a lot. It's a lot of good work, but I want to make sure that we have the appropriate balance in here, so that your office can enjoy life too. Obviously, we appreciate that you work hard, but we don't want to set it up for 100 hours a week.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Because that's not a fair expectation. So I think, and I think we've been able to accomplish that with the high, medium, and low, as you discussed at the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, and that this is sort of aspirational, and sort of as needs focus, right, or change, and we need to change our focus. That this is sort of flexible. It's sort of a living document.
Yeah, and again, I think the themes are good, right? That we take care of the community, that we invest in the community from an event and a resource standpoint, from a capital standpoint, obviously cleaning up the backroom stuff, which is never exciting for folks, but really, really important for efficiencies and cost savings down the road. And then what type of employer and community do we want to be with the diversity and inclusion efforts? So I'm good with it. And Eric, obviously, based on the high, medium, and low, I'm not afraid to add anything here.
Okay.
But that's just my thoughts initially.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Wendy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just had a thought, and I'm not sure where this would appear. But is there anywhere that it would show, you talk about reach out to the business community. Do we have anything on here related to reaching out to the public, the resident community, as far as office hours, the ability to come in and talk one-on-one with you, set up calls? I mean, I'm sure you do that on a ad hoc basis, but should that be, or could that be a goal listed here, that you do have weekly office hours, or is it here somewhere and I don't see it?
Yeah, no, right now, we just do that generally on an ad hoc basis, whether it's a phone call or an in-person visit as needed. But it's something, we could definitely talk about, some sort of structured office hour kind of drop-in time.
Yeah, just because, I mean, you just out there are times people have said, not that you're inaccessible, but it would be good to have a way to come in one-on-one with you in an open time to meet with you. So I think that would be really good as a, relationship building with our town, and in an effort of transparency to everybody. So that's just one suggestion that I would have.
Thanks, that's a good suggestion.
Okay, so the item that I've been thinking about is around our budget development. So this would, if we did this, it would be under the financial priorities. Obviously, our residents' appetite for tax increases is always limited, but I anticipate that in the coming year it will be particularly limited. And I know that every year we get to budget season, and in February we evaluate that there's always a gap that occurs when there are budget drivers that we know about, whether it's often contractual salary increases, healthcare, among other things, that lead to a six-figure increase in the operating budget. And that's something that I assume we don't know the dollar figure now exactly, but we could probably estimate it reasonably well. And I'm interested in getting a grasp of what that figure is soon, so that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance can have thoughtful conversations, not in February, but leading up to February, so that we can talk about where is this, how are we going to close this gap? Are we going to look for efficiencies? Is there stomach to increase the mill rate? Do we talk about difficult cuts or reducing services? And those are things that I would rather talk about proactively than get into budget season and feel that crunch. And I don't know how to articulate that in a goal, but I want to open it up to my peers for discussion.
So just a quick question, Eric. So go back to the beginning. We're trying to predict where the revenue holes are so that we can proactively address them.
Well, let's just say we assume that we were not going to make any service enhancements. We're just going to continue with what we do.
Yep.
There is, every year there are things that drive the budget higher that we know about right now for next year.
Mhm.
And my proposal is we understand what that number is now, and then have those thoughtful conversations throughout the year around where that money is going to come from.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I mean, that would be phenomenal, and Amy would love it. That was part of the intent of the long-term planning committee, I think, long-range planning committee between the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Ed, and the Board of Finance, in terms of trying to get models out there and benchmarks and get ahead of that. Again, I'm always the glass half empty kind of guy on this stuff, but the problem is, Eric, is until we know what the grand list growth is, our cost on the Board of Selectmen side, Maria, keep me honest, is somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5 every year, barring catastrophe on health, which will push it to 3.5. That makes up about 0.5 point to maybe a point on the overall budget, right? The Board of Ed drives the budget and the capital drives the budget, combined far more than we do. So basically we cost 1% every year, give or take, right, Maria? I mean, just completely rounding, wagging it. I know it's more precise than that, but with no grand list growth, no changes in state aid, we're costing the mill rate 1% basically, the mill rate 1%. And then you add the Board of Ed, you add capital on there, and that's where the flux is. And then you overlay that with the mill rate changes, with the grand list changes, which we our assessor does a great job of trying to help us predict. So, we can do that. My concern though is do we, to what end? Because we've still got to pay the contractual obligations, et cetera. And I agree with you. We should have these conversations about what we're willing to cut or what we're not willing to cut ahead of time. But in doing this for a decade, we're not going to cut police officers. We're not going to cut plow drivers. Nope. We're not going to cut social services, right? And we cut a lot of fat out before Maria got here. We've cut even more since. I struggle with what we're going to do. In addition, and again, my additional struggle here is twofold. One, enrollment is going to start going back up. So candidly, it's not going to be us that drives the budgetary changes in this town. We enjoyed a period of long and pretty steep declining enrollment. Those days are gone. I think as you saw this year, I think we were flat or a little bit up, right? And then the state is closer to bankruptcy than it's ever been, right? And we don't even know the full implications. So what do we do about the 6 million that we get, right? Because we can run scenarios on, do we lose 1 million, 3 million, 6 million? Do they shove the teacher pension cost on us? Again, where my long-winded sermon is going here, because I think I like where you're going, but I think we take it up a level to the scenario planning, the long-range planning, the capital, with an understanding of those baseline assumptions of what drives our budget. And we try to position ourselves ahead of time with information, and then if we need to go down a rabbit hole or somewhere else based on what we see coming or those changes, we're better equipped outside of the budget process. Does that make sense, or did I just ramble too much?
Well, Maria, can you scroll back to the financial section on this page too, just so?
Sure.
And I know there's a lot in here. Is the spirit of what Sean is suggesting captured in here?
So maybe. And I know that, I think most of you know this, Wendy. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm kind of a budgeting nerd. I love it. That's what I did really early on in my career. I was a management analyst in a budget department for a very large city. So I really love this stuff. And so, I think kind of building off of Eric, what you were sharing, and Sean, what you were sharing, something Amy and I have spoken about is we would love to do more sort of long range forecasting and planning. Because right now we're kind of doing it as we're heading into budget season. And, I think she did a beautiful job of that, when we prepared for tri-board. And, I think she ultimately was off by like 0.2% in terms of where we thought we would, land for our sort of fixed costs versus, where we were. But kind of being able to do that, more again, in a more long range fashion. I think there could be some opportunity for us to have more capacity to do this. If you'll recall, you authorized us to hire an accountant position. We're currently recruiting for that position. We've actually got a phenomenal amount of applications to go through, which is a great position to be in. So I definitely think that sort of that long range forecasting and planning is something we're going to have more capacity to do. Just not really quite sure yet how that might look. But it's a great idea. And I think it's, it sounds like we're all kind of thinking about the same thing there. So I could try wording something to that effect to add to this, to that, first goal.
Well, I was going to say, Eric, I'm not sure if this is what you're saying, but in a normal, like in a corporate job, usually they might say, find $200,000 worth of savings in your, operations, or a way to either, cut back on one thing that would generate some kind of savings. And I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, that as a goal, that would be something.
So that I wasn't being that prescriptive, but yeah, that's where, I hesitate to compare government to corporate, but I know that the vast majority of companies right now have specific goals around cost reduction. For example, we had a sort of a blanket 5% goal for our department, which COVID actually solved for us because we just cut travel out altogether.
Right.
And I hesitate doing that for the town without being thoughtful about what that number means and then what the implications are going to be. But let me shut up and see if that's something that happens in the government space.
Yeah, what I think is hard sort of in our government space is often it's about service changes or service reductions. Especially, I think, to Sean's point, our budget is I think fairly lean, and that we're budgeting like exactly what we need. And there's not a lot of wiggle room in there. And so if you're talking about any sort of major reductions, it's sort of saying, okay, well, we're willing to accept a lower service level for this, so maybe we're willing to accept that our roads aren't going to get plowed as quickly. Or maybe we're okay with having, less of a response time, for our calls for police service. Or potentially, okay, we're not going to offer, team programming at the library anymore. So typically for us, that's what's a little bit different about our world, is that if we're talking about a reduction, it usually means a lower service level, or we're going to no longer provide a certain service. And then we would be having our conversation about, okay, well, what services are we willing to accept a lower service level, or what services are we willing to no longer perform?
Okay.
But do we, as a board though, any reduction in services, do they come to us?
Yeah, exactly. Through the budgeting process. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't rule on the specific service, Wendy, but if we don't fund something, then we've reduced the service, right? So years ago, we had to cut the library, and that was one of the most painful things we ever did. We had to cut back our hours for budgetary reasons. We were ultimately, a couple of years later, able to restore them, but we took 10 hours a week or whatever it was away from the library, and the community was not happy. So that's the balance. Eric, I think there's a happy medium here, because Wendy, I get what you're saying, but also the danger here is the moment we put a number down on a piece of paper, people's jobs are at stake, and we've created angst, and we've got to be careful. So I think if we position ourselves to make thoughtful decisions as quickly as possible when these curveballs from the state or otherwise come up, I think might be the middle ground here, Eric, in terms of we need to be as nimble as we can and as thoughtful as we can and armed with as much good information as we can so that when the budget season happens, we're in a good place to make a quick, thoughtful decision, right? Is the dream here. And, part of this too is, as Maria alluded to, we need staff to do this work. This doesn't come out of the ether, right? There, a lot of communities have budget analysts and other folks that this is what they do for a living for the community. We don't have the luxury of that staff. So it's a bit of a challenge, and we're asking Amy and Maria to do it off the side of their desk with the rest of their job. And it's important. But that's where I think, again, while it is a bit painful, that long range planning committee is somewhat of a mechanism to help that, because then you've got, Wendy with her experience, or Rob with his experience, or Lisa with hers, all working together to supplement what staff's doing. And then we're all part of the solution versus a PowerPoint, when we've got to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm fine with incorporating that into the goals.
And again, Eric,
That's great.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it gets to better position where you're talking about, because in that we're going to talk about where are the holes. If we had to reduce, what's our action plan for service reductions, getting ready for that stuff so that it's not a fire drill when we have to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just avoiding that crunch we have when we have 60 days to figure out the budget.
Yeah, and I think that's where the modeling and the scenario planning, and I know people have laughed at me, but we need to talk about the state zeroing us out. 10 years ago it was a joke. This year it's not as much of a joke, especially if they put the full pension cost on us. That's almost zeroing us out from a state aid standpoint. So, those are scenarios that we need to take seriously and have some continuity plans for.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're getting into oh crap, we got to cut a whole department, right? Yeah. And that's not a place we want to be.
So just one last pitch here, I guess, is there room in the other sections, we have goals related to the response to the pandemic. There's nothing that I can read, at least right now, under financial management that has any reference or eye to the pandemic and how it impacts the town financially from now into the next budget session. Is that something, is there room for a soft, not a, figure, but a goal is relating to financial management that we keep an eye on ways to, not really lessen services, but find a better way to do things, or re-examine some of the services in light of what we've been through and what we're facing between now and the next budget?
Okay, sure. Oh, sorry.
And Eric, I don't know if that lines up with what you were saying at all, but just in adding that as the context, I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to that addition. I think that the sort of the long range planning though is going to set us up regardless of whether there's a pandemic or whatever the next fiscal financial crisis is. And I'm fine if there's some wording in here that recognizes the challenging situation we're in. But I see that, what I was suggesting in this other goal even goes beyond the current situation.
Yeah, I got, but I just was trying to appease what Sean was saying.
Yeah,
I'm on board with where Eric's going with this. I'm sorry, Wendy, I didn't mean to come across as against it. No, I agree with where Eric's going.
You don't want to call out,
taking it up even a higher level. Just simply the long range planning for future proofing the town, right? Or insulating the town from fiscal challenges is I think what we're all getting at here, just at different levels and different ways, which I think is really good. So I think it's a goal worth adding, and perhaps we just talk about it at the very high level, and then we can define it within the work group. But the expectation for Maria and her office is that it needs to be led, and it needs to get input from all the stakeholders to be effective for exactly what you just said, Wendy, for what Eric said, and perhaps for what I said, and also Board of Finance members and Board of Ed members, because as my little sermon at the beginning, we're only 1%. We've got to include the other two stakeholders to really make this effective.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So I'm not against it, Eric. I'm very much in agreement with it.
No, I hear you.
Keeping it at a nimble level so that we can use it. You're right, beyond the pandemic, beyond an economic crash, just for the future.
Maria, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, no. So yeah, I can definitely incorporate something into the goals around long range planning. And sort of better define that. But to your point, Wendy, around the pandemic piece, I mean, that's something else I could definitely add to this category. It is something that we are spending time on. So, and again, mostly coming from Amy and her team, but, monitoring our expenditures closely, monitoring our cash flow, that's really important. And then what we also started, which I'm really glad we did, but we started early on, even before we knew that there were going to be federal dollars available, we sort of anticipated that there would be. So we've been tracking all of our pandemic related expenditures very closely and accounting for that and, submitting for reimbursement to FEMA or the state as appropriate. That will be forthcoming. So that is a fairly big endeavor that my office is helping to support. So that's definitely something I could certainly elaborate on in this section as well.
Yeah, and if you guys are doing such a good job, then you get a high rating for that goal. I mean, just equating that back to a corporate thing.
Okay. Good discussion. So I wanted to see if Sean, Wendy, if you are comfortable forwarding this on with these changes to the Board of Selectmen for our next meeting.
I am, yep.
Yeah, I am. I just have a question, and maybe I'm missing the process.
Sure.
So the stuff that Tom sent out for us for our review on the goals as a board, what happened with that? Where did that go? And how is it used?
Yeah, good question. So Maria, I don't want to speak for you, but I assume that you use that document to populate your goals.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So sort of looking at, those sort of larger policy goals that are most important to you, incorporating what I can into my goals. I'll be coming up on during the summer is when I do the annual reviews for my direct reports, as well as setting up goals for them for the upcoming fiscal year. So incorporating where I can, things that are more departmental specific into my direct reports goals. And then we also use that for our budgeting process in terms of resources and prioritizing resources. So those are some of, I think, the most common places where your goals really help shape our work.
Okay. Yeah, I just didn't know where that went.
Yeah. So the goals that are in that document are, I think, are intended to be a little bit longer range for for the 2 years of our term, and then she uses that as an input for her goals. Okay. Personally, I looked at the goals we came up with in November, and I think that many of them are still quite relevant, but some of them also look a little bit quaint in light of what's happening in our world right now.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So is there a motion to, what would the motion be? To forward Maria's 2020-2021 goals to the Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Maria, thank you. Thank you very much. I know how busy you are and the time you took to put this thoughtful document together. Really,
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask Maria to drop during this. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to hop off.
Good?
Yeah, I'm going to hop off. Yeah.
Great.
She can watch it on TV, right?
I do. Do you want? I don't even. What do my colleagues think?
Just giving you a hard time.
All right. I'll text Maria when we're. So for the public's understanding of how we got here, I know you all are aware. But Maria is Simsbury's first town manager. She was hired in January of 2018. Her 3-year contract is expiring in January of 2021. So that's this January. And earlier this spring, the Board of Selectmen tasked this group, the Personnel Subcommittee, with recommending whether to extend the town manager's contract. And through my first selectman's report, I put out 3 calls to provide input in the process over the past 6 weeks, and I've been collecting that feedback. I've shared all the feedback that I've received with members of this committee, and I'm going to summarize that feedback in a moment. But first, I just wanted to see if Wendy or Sean had received any feedback that I hadn't.
I mean, I've had anecdotal discussions or individual experiences over the prior
Sure.
2 years, but nothing with respect to your call for additional feedback, Eric.
Okay.
And I've had people comment informally to me on certain things that they would like to see more of, as far as transparency and responsiveness to the public, which is why I brought up the office hours, and just more transparency on things in general. That even come to the board. Maybe it's heard, Eric, between you guys, but like the open space, the Meadowood. I mean, I know it had to be done in private, but just those are the 2 things that I would just say there's more transparency and more public availability are things that I've heard.
Yeah.
Wendy, can we probe on that a little bit? Because to your point, that was a confidential executive session discussion. So the Meadowood. So I mean, we were required to do it that way. So what are the other examples?
Well, I don't have any. I'm saying they were anecdotal. But as far as transparency goes, when we heard about layoffs at the library, people had not heard that were related to that, and it was a decision made without us weighing in on that. And I know that you said that it wasn't our role to have to know that, but I beg to differ in some of the charter. So just certain things that and dealings with the commission, when there's a fine line between who should be involved and who needs to be involved, maybe we go towards should be involved rather than has to be involved. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
To err on the side of sharing versus not sharing with potentially related boards and commissions.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And the only reason I'm pushing you is because I agree with you, and that's something that we've been working with the town manager on through the review process. I'm just wondering if it has a role in the contract process. I agree with you. It's not something we can ignore. I think it's a review process. And Eric, I mean, you and I have been part of those direct conversations with the town manager, right? As part of delivering her annual review. Wendy, I'm sorry. I agree with you. We need to continue to address that stuff. I'm just, I think there's the contract, and then there's the execution of it.
Yeah, and I don't know what we're talking about here specifically.
Yeah.
So I'm just putting it out.
Well, I guess my point is if that anecdote is enough to give you pause to renew the contract, then we talk about it here.
No, it's pause to improve on those in order to have more open and acceptability of our town manager.
Fair enough. Again, not challenging, just wanted to understand the context of where we're going to do it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to take the next few minutes, and for transparency, I want to summarize the feedback that we received. I got feedback from 8 people. 6 of those people are recommending a contract extension, 2 are not. 2 of the people that I heard from are department heads who are direct reports of the town manager, and to be clear, they are recommending a contract extension. 3 of the people who reached out are members of appointed boards, and they are all recommending contract extensions. And then I heard from 3 members of the public at large. 2 of those people are not recommending contract extensions. There were 2 people who asked me to read out loud the feedback that they sent, so I'm going to do that right now. This first one is from Joan Poe. After many decades of promoting a town manager, I feel I was correct in establishing a town manager. Simsbury does need professional management. However, Town Manager Maria Capriola is the wrong person for the job. Simsbury could do better. I'd like to express my concerns that should be reviewed before the subcommittee evaluates Town Manager Maria Capriola's contract. Simsbury is part of a vast complex of towns that rely on reputation to fill jobs. Communities all rely on the same pool of applicants for key positions. Town Manager Maria Capriola has a reputation of creating a toxic work environment, with the union filing a municipal prohibited practice complaint against her. This reputation of abuse of power is widespread, leading to high-level applicants not applying to serve the Simsbury community. Town Manager Maria Capriola has abused her power by alienating the police commission with questionable opinions from the town attorney. The abrupt resignation of Commissioner Jim Fleming from the police commission, stating that he believes in the rule of law, is another indication of Town Manager Maria Capriola's abuse of power. Under the leadership of Town Manager Maria Capriola, there have been many grievances and terminations of employment that are costly in legal fees, defending the town's position when there's no legitimate defense. Instead of streamlining commissions, Town Manager Maria Capriola has instituted over 50 work groups with staff designating time to support these groups and attend meetings. This becomes all-consuming with other impending issues that require professional attention. Many of the meetings are clerked by staff and Town Manager Maria Capriola, and that creates a conflict of authority. Our town staff did not sign up for 24/7 employment. The Board of Selectmen are more interested in getting reelected than tackling the issues in front of them. It's easy to stay with the status quo, but takes courage to vote your conscience. The town is not served well when our elected officials duck the pivotal issues, not to defend the vocal constituencies. How can the Board of Selectmen, after reviewing all of the facts in good conscience, vote to renew Town Manager Maria Capriola's contract? All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter @JoanCo, and on Facebook. I also received an additional email from.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Was there any facts or specific examples included in that submission?
I just read the letter as it was sent to me.
Okay, so it was just a matter of opinion. There was no specific examples or facts that were given. Okay,
Correct.
just want to make sure as we can, because I want to appropriately consider it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate when people send us information, but again, opinion versus fact is challenging to evaluate.
This next letter is from Jason Geller, and it reads, I'm a Simsbury resident. My family and I have lived here since early 2018. I'm writing to let you know how much I like and appreciate Maria Capriola and the work she's doing for our town. I stay current by reading our town updates that come over email and find them informative and well composed. I've come to know Maria and her family on a personal level and have enjoyed spending time with them. She's a wonderful person and feels like a great asset to our town. Being in a newly created role is tough and comes with new job pressures, and it feels like she's done and continues to do a great job navigating the town manager role for us, and notably keeping us informed as things change with regard to COVID-19 and our town's handling of it. Please consider this my support for a vote of confidence in Maria and the work she's doing for Simsbury, and I strongly encourage you to extend her contract when it comes up for renewal in January 2021. Okay.
Same question. Any other examples or facts that were included? That was, or just again the letter?
Nope, I'm just reading the letter as it was sent.
Okay. Again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Lastly, I want to summarize other feedback that I received. One of her direct reports shared a letter, and I just wanted to read an excerpt from that. I've observed her interactions with coworkers, town boards, and commission members, and the public, and I'm always impressed by her professionalism and enthusiasm for making Simsbury a better and more inclusive community. Maria is an amazing communicator. Never once in my time here have I felt that I didn't have the information necessary to carry out my duties successfully. She's an incredibly hardworking individual and sets a high bar for the rest of the town of Simsbury team, while being compassionate about her staff maintaining a positive work-life balance. Other feedback we received, and I'm quoting here, I've had the opportunity to work directly with Maria on a number of projects and issues during her time as Simsbury's first town manager. In all of my interaction with her, she's acted in a very professional manner. She's always been very well prepared for our meetings and very knowledgeable on the content being discussed, reviewed, and voted on at the meeting. She's also very adept at building consensus after giving all participants an opportunity for their viewpoints to be heard. Another member of one of our appointed boards praised her professionalism and strategic thinking and the ways that she's helped to professionalize how the town does business. One area of constructive feedback that this person provided was how the town is handling the proposed disposition of a parcel of open space. She shared with me that there could have been a more holistic review of various options before getting to the point where we're getting to now, where there's a public hearing schedule. Lastly, there was one member of the public who reached out to me who is not in favor of a contract extension, and his concerns were around Ms. Capriola's performance based on the personnel situation, a personnel situation that he read about in the newspaper. So I'm going to pause there, and I wanted to open it up for discussion with Wendy and Sean.
So, having been a part of the hiring and the entire process here, I'll be honest with you. I think we're further along than I envisioned we would be when I voted for this change for town manager many years ago. It hasn't gone without bumps, as any new relationship does. There's been some challenges. We've got different perspective on overstepping or understepping authority, and appreciate Wendy's examples. And folks like to throw around the MVPs and the grievances. From everything I understand in the professional manager community, if you're not getting grievances and MVPs, you're not doing your job. And it's not that we're taking an adversarial position with the union, but again, it's a contract and it needs to be enforced. And there are employment challenges that come with that, and it goes on both sides, and communication is important. But the grievances and the arbitrations, et cetera, don't give me pause, because I think they're handled appropriately and professionally. And again, we have both the town and the employees' best interests in mind when we're working through them. And in my conversations with Maria, she always comes from a place of fact and legal basis, not of emotion or what she thinks. It's what she knows. And it's never about an individual. It's about a process, or it's about a role or a contract. Whether we disagree on the contract or not, it's still always about the contract, which is what I had hoped for and expected. 6 of us are volunteers, and I think you guys all do a really, really good job. And I worked with some really thoughtful first select women in the past that did a really, really good job. But there are some tangible differences here that with a town manager, and I think we're all experiencing it. Wendy, your point of office hours is a good one, right? It's something we had under prior first select people, and it's something we're all used to. And I have the ability to drop in because I'm on the board of selectmen, but all residents should have that ability. But we've got to balance it with, we ask our town staff to do a lot with not a lot of resources. So I think that's good feedback, and I think we need to incorporate it. At the end of the day, Eric, I think we've addressed, as we would with any employee in the public or private space, room for improvement. And I think Maria has been extremely accepting and receptive of feedback, of professional development. I mean, she knows this is her first role as a town manager, as the lead spot. I've seen her grow in the last 2 years. I've seen her make mistakes. Absolutely. I've made a bunch of mistakes. I make mistakes every day. But I'm very comfortable with what I've seen from what I thought we were getting, what we contractually entered into, down to the goals and professionalism that we just had a discussion on about a half an hour ago. That we've moved our town forward substantially, and I think Maria has been a substantial portion of that movement. So that's just where my head's at here.
Thanks, Sean. Wendy?
Yeah, so a couple things. I deal with Maria. When I felt I wasn't hearing enough of what was going on, especially during the pandemic, her and I now have a weekly call, which is now moved to bi-weekly, which has really helped me stay connected much more, to know what's going on more on a day-to-day basis. And there was no qualms about doing that. And I feel, I feel that like I am for extending her contract with a few caveats, which I'd get to, but I think it would be disruptive at this point to find a new town manager and would be not in the best interest of the town. I think that given a few, she's in the job for 3 years. So I feel that like I said, with a few like more soft tweaks, I guess, are the things that I was bringing up, that she can grow in this role and grow with the town. And I do feel that she's, handling everything like on a technical basis really well. And it's just some of the things that I mentioned previously, which now I'm questioning the things that I was mentioning. Should those be part of the goals? Or like, did I miss the boat on having those on her goals? In one of the things is because she's paid, not elected, may not be as in tune, to what I guess the constituents are looking for, and that, us should be looking at more of things that she should bring to the public versus what she has to bring to the public, the examples I gave before. So I don't know where that goes, but those are things that I would like to see. And then somebody else mentioned this, which was a good point. I'm not sure where it was, but we haven't, knock wood, we haven't had any, dealings with the press that we had before. But the fact that a lot of times we had no comment, which is maybe the best way to handle things, is that we think about more what we present, so it doesn't look like we're hiding things. And that's really more, again, with the whole transparency issue.
Yeah, I think Wendy, you make good points. I think that there's really two conversations. One is around, do those items stand in the way of you supporting a contract extension? But the other is her annual performance review process, which we're actually going to be kicking off in the next 30 days or so.
Okay, I wasn't sure where we were. Yeah.
Provide a self-eval of what she said she was going to do. And then we're going to be able to provide written feedback in 6 or so categories. And then we sit down and discuss it with her. And in addition to that, I know that we've already initiated a formal 360 review process with executive coaching to facilitate her development. So the way I look at it is those things will be addressed through that process.
Okay, great. And again, I'm new to the process, so I'm not. Yeah,
No.
so I'm not sure where we are in the process, but that would be great to have those. I can bring those up there.
Yeah, that'll be taking place this summer.
Okay.
So I just wanted to share a few reflections of my own, and this doesn't begin to cover the gamut, but I think that Maria is a highly skilled professional who in a very short time here has brought best practices to numerous parts of our organization. She requires a high level of accountability from staff at every level of the organization. And she's also someone in my time here I found cares deeply for our community and for the people who work for our community. There's no one in my life that I've worked with that is more consistently prepared for every meeting she attends. The public may not be aware that our Board of Selectmen packets are over 200 pages. And I know, Tom, you play a role in that too. Thank you. But it just speaks to the level of preparation that goes into everything she does. She's helped to usher in improved budgetary and financial management practices. And a final piece I credit Maria and her team with, because she did not do this alone. But under her leadership, our town has realized over $1 million in savings through special projects. And thinking in particular about the emergency, why am I blanking? The emergency radio system as just one example. So I greatly appreciate everybody who reached out to us with their feedback and the time they spent compiling it and sharing it with us. I would endorse a contract extension.
And Eric, I appreciate those comments. I agree with everything both you and Wendy just said. And Wendy, we're all getting used to this still. So just because Eric and I have a little bit more comfort with the timing doesn't mean we've got it down either. This is the first time we're doing the contract renewal too. So it's all, so don't worry, you're not alone in that. It's all new to us too. And we're not ignoring the critical feedback, and I want to make that clear. So I did push back, Eric, on the facts and circumstances of some of those. And it's not that I appreciate the opinions, I appreciate the thoughts, but to make change, and I demand this of myself and my folks at my professional life and in the volunteer life. If I'm going to affect change, I need specific examples and I need open minds, because there's always two stories. There's always two sides to those stories. Maria is not a malicious person, and neither is the individuals that have critical feedback. Everybody's is just seeing things from their perspective. So I want to continue to hear that perspective, because there has been times where people have given me feedback, and we've needed to go make a change because there's a gap. There's something missing. The communication has fallen down, Wendy, to your point. And I think that's important. It's interesting. We also need to continue to evolve in our role, because Wendy, all the things you said about connection to the community, I agree with you. The challenge for me, at least, is that's in some part our role, is to be the voice for the constituents to the town manager as she runs the professional side of things. And there's a happy median. I expect her, and we've demanded of her that she be a member of this community, right? We talked about residency in the past, Eric, and we didn't include it because we figured we are a community that people wanted to live in, and we were right. Maria moved here. But she needs to be, and I think has been, and is learning the community and the individuals, and not just those of us that are elected or talk loud, but those that make a difference in volunteer groups and PTOs and different places. And I think we need, as a board, to continue to facilitate that and help her. And I know she's been very open when I'm direct and honest with her. And Eric, you and I have been part of those same conversations when we say, hey, Maria, this is what we see, this is what we hear, and here's how we want to help. And never once does she argue, never once does she defend. It's, yeah, let's get better. Let's get that done. And the public doesn't get to see that. So Wendy, your theme of transparency, I think, is right. So that's where I think we need to continue to supplement. And again, not blindly defend our choice. We need to hold our choice accountable. And to your point before, that's where the review process is, which is very open, right? We share a document with the public. We talk about it. We give specific feedback there. I think we've got a pretty some other folks there. So all good points you guys are bringing up.
So let me ask if there's a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen contract extension.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I am shooting a text to Maria, and she's just gonna hop back on, and then we'll wrap up. I know we're at time. I hope everyone's doing okay.
Eric, if you just give me one more quick sermon. I appreciate all your work through this, because I do view this as a partnership between the first selectman and the town manager. And I think a big part of the success of this transition has been your willingness to adapt and learn and kind of work with everybody, myself and the town manager included, Eric. And I've worked with a lot of good folks over the years, but I think we're very lucky to have you alongside Maria helping us through this transition with the review process. And I give a lot of credit to my buddy Chris Kelly too. I think you guys have led a lot of important change that's laid the groundwork for success for everybody here. So I didn't want that to go unnoticed. I know we're talking about the town manager's contract, but I think you've been a big part of the success of what she's enjoyed.
That's very kind of you to say. Thank you, Sean.
I was trying to talk long enough for her to get back on.
Texted her. There she is. Okay.
Sorry, I had forgotten to put my earbuds back in.
No problem. Well, Maria, I'm pleased to share with you that the Personnel Subcommittee unanimously endorsed a contract extension to recommend to the Board of Selectmen.
That's wonderful.
I wanted to encourage you in your infinite spare time to go back and listen to the conversation, because there were many kind things said about you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity, and I've just really enjoyed my time here. Leading the organization, and sorry, I forgot to put my TV on mute. And yeah, no, I've just tremendously enjoyed my time here. I love the community. My family is really happy here. It's just been a wonderful honor to serve the community, and I look forward to continuing to do that. So thank you for the recommendation, and look forward to speaking with the full board about it.
Thanks, Maria. Sean or Wendy, anything you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think I've said enough today. Thank you.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. Is there a motion to? Thank you. Thank you both for your partnership on this. And so on your suggestion of this process. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll move it. So
there you go.
moved.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good talking to you as always. Have a good day.